We have breaking news. The real breaking news is right here. The Cleveland Browns have traded up to select Shedeur Sanders, quarterback, Colorado. There's your double up at the quarterback position. If you're a Dylan Gabriel fan, if you're a Shedeur Sanders fan, they get to go head-to-head here. The quarterback room will be crowded. That's what Andrew Berry said. It will be crowded, and it is. Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Shedeur Sanders to the Cleveland Browns.
Okay.
I hope this is true because it's coming through on Twitter here.
What do you mean you hope it's true?
It looks real. It looks real.
All right.
It's
this
happening.
Is a lot to unpack, right? Because let's just take a step back for a second and look at this big picture. The Cleveland Browns, who were being talked about a week or two ago as a team that could draft Shedeur Sanders at 2 overall, have come back in the 5th round and selected him as their second quarterback. So even independent, forget where they were drafted, they have come out of this draft with Shedeur Sanders, with Dylan Gabriel, and with Mason Graham, right? Imagine telling anybody that a couple of weeks ago, this was what the Browns were going to end up doing. It would seem wild. So this is from a pure what they ended up with standpoint. That is amazing for the Cleveland Browns. Now we get, this is a very similar to the Sam Howell thing we just talked about. Shedeur Sanders has fallen from a potential number 2 overall pick to the 5th round and is the second quarterback that the Browns drafted in this draft.
Do we cut this into a separate, are we supposed to like do a whole different breaking news video, or are we just going to roll with it?
Let's just keep doing it here, and we can maybe chop it up later and put it out.
Stereo. We'll chop it up later. Let's talk Shedeur Sanders. We're done with round. Yes, honey, am I recording? Yes, I am recording. Big news is happening. Shedeur Sanders to the Cleveland Browns. Let me start with this. First off, I was only half joking, but like a little serious on what the Browns draft strategy should have been a few weeks ago when I said, if you don't love Shedeur Sanders at the top and you want to take, at the time, we thought maybe they'll take Travis Hunter, right? If you don't want to take the QB at the top, take 2 quarterbacks and let's see. And if they don't pan out, go next year. By the way, we've just stepped into maybe that controversy as well because the Browns have 2 firsts next year and they might have options for quarterbacks. So we'll see. We might have that coming down the road. But they've drafted 2 quarterbacks. Dylan Gabriel now in the 3rd, Shedeur Sanders in the 5th. I love it, man. I love it. The Browns need a quarterback, right? And they need a cheap quarterback. So why not draft 2? Let them compete. Go get it right now. Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders.
This couldn't have worked out any better for the Cleveland Browns. I mean, honestly, they have gotten a guy that was being talked about as a top 5 pick, and they've got him in the 5th round as their second quarterback, and they've gotten Dylan Gabriel as an insurance, as a roll of the dice, as a we like his tools, and maybe he's the guy that could surprise people from the mid-rounds. But they've effectively, I mean, we were saying, look, how do you get out from under this Deshaun Watson nightmare position, the contract? You need to find a capable starting quarterback that doesn't cost you any money, right? So they have taken 2 shots at this. They've taken what a lot of people, you, I, Renner, I think all 3 of us kind of viewed Dylan Gabriel as the guy from the mid-rounds that could potentially surprise and turn into a starting quarterback. It's low percentage, right? It's probably not a good chance that he's going to be that guy. But if you were putting your chips on one of those guys, like I would throw my free bet, right? The bonus bet. I would throw my bonus bet on Dylan Gabriel as the guy to become a surprise starter down the line. So they've taken that gamble. They've come back and they've grabbed Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round, where it's just like, if he's as good as the people that loved him think he is, this is the greatest value pick in this draft. If he isn't, it only costs us a 5th round. Who cares? And as you said, they've gotten 2 first-round picks next year, which is probably what they're targeting as the quarterback of the future. We can kick the can down the road. We can buy some time with these 2 guys this year, but next year is where we have 2 first-round draft picks, and that's when the Deshaun Watson deal becomes the easiest to get out of anyway. This is like perfect. Really, the only question is the Mason Graham versus Travis Hunter dynamic. But in terms of, we're going to take a stud player at the top of this draft, and then this is what we're going to end up with quarterbacks later on. This could not have ended up any better for Cleveland.
Well, let's go through the whole process here, because obviously the Browns passed on him many times in this draft. Many times, including at pick number 2, including at pick number 5, like all the places where we thought Shedeur Sanders was probably going to go in the first round, including when they just said, hey, we're going to pick a quarterback here in round 3. It's going to be Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. So clearly this just got to a point where, hey, he's still on the board. We've done our work on him. We know what we're getting into. We didn't think he was worth it in rounds 1, 2, 3, or 4. But in round 5, what could go wrong? I do wonder how much the Browns did go in. Again, I was half joking a few weeks ago, but kind of serious. Like, draft 2 quarterbacks and see what happens. You're desperate at quarterback if you're the Browns. I really think they were going to do this. Draft 2 quarterbacks. I don't think this is the pairing, though. I think they Kyle McCord or Quinn Ewers. There was going to be someone else. And this is the Gabriel guy. They're like, hey, we were going to bring in 2 quarterbacks anyway. Why not Shedeur?
Yeah, it was going to be like Dylan Gabriel and Curtis Rourke. And instead, it's like at some point, Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round just becomes too good a value to pass up, and they pounce on him. Now, the other element of this is going to be fascinating because now, like, this has been an absolute kick to the nuts for Shedeur Sanders and the Sanders family and brand Sanders, right? The draft party that he's got with his own branding, legendary and, dollar squared and all this thing. Like, this could not have been any more embarrassing and humbling for Shedeur Sanders than it has been. How do they handle that, right? Is he going to handle this the right way, knuckle down, try and show the world that they were wrong and that he deserved to go in the first round? If they get that player, right, a motivated Shedeur Sanders willing to accept this and use it to grow, use it to get better, use it to become the player that he could be. Again, this could be the steal of the draft. And if it isn't, right, if he handles it the wrong way, if he handles it with immaturity instead of maturity and, becomes a sort of spiteful headache and a problem, the 5th round pick is low enough that you can cut the guy and it didn't cost you much, right? Like, either of those things are fine. They've taken a long shot on a guy who has incredible potential to pay off. And by that, I don't mean that he has like the talent to be Josh Allen or anything, but he could be a starting quarterback for this team going forward, over the next few years. And if they hit that in the 5th, it's one of the best value contracts in the NFL. But if it doesn't work out, if he is too much of a headache to be worth it, they could cut him at the end of training camp and it wouldn't be it wouldn't be an anomalous outcome. Like, teams cut 5th round picks fairly regularly. So again, there's no downside to this for the Browns. It's a great roll of the dice. If it works out, the payoff is astronomical. If it doesn't work out, all it costs them is a 5th round draft pick that they cut sooner rather than later.
I got to get back to this. We have someone texted me about one of the receivers they drafted. Listen, I love this for the Browns. I need to explain it because we got a lot of new people in here. We appreciate everybody being in here. Check the mic, hit the subscribe button. We're going to give you different analysis if you're new. Different analysis than what you might get on TV. Here's the deal. The analytically inclined Cleveland Browns made a massive misstep a couple years ago for Deshaun Watson. As I've said before, the misstep affected it twice. When teams miss on quarterbacks, it usually affects you one of 2 ways. You either overpaid for him and you regret it, or you drafted him, or you made like a big trade up. Like, if Bryce Young didn't pan out, the Panthers would say, man, we just gave up 5 premium picks to go get Bryce Young, and that hurt the depth of our team. For the Cleveland Browns, it affected both. They gave him the worst contract in NFL history, and they gave up 3 first-round picks for him. The 2 ways that you can build your team, money and draft capital, screwed them both. So now the Browns are in this horrible situation where they're trying to figure out how to get out of it. All right. And we need to rethink what missing on draft pick quarterbacks means, right? Like, the Jets missed on Zach Wilson a couple years ago. Great. You come back, you just keep drafting quarterbacks. And if you miss, you miss. You don't have anybody if you don't take a shot. It's riskier to not take a shot because you don't have a quarterback. So the Browns are sitting here with a QB room of Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett and no other specific nice way of getting out of the Deshaun Watson mess. This is a creative way to maybe get an out from that mess, which includes an incredible buy low on Shedeur Sanders. Let me add one more piece of context here. If the reports were true that the New York Giants had Sanders as QB1 heading into the combine, I don't think there's any reason to dispute that. I think he's a talented quarterback who had first-round tape. That he was QB1, but it was the interview that turned them off. And And so they just said, we don't want to deal with that, but it's still first round tape. And I assume that's what I assume the interview process with a lot of teams probably went sour. If that's true with the Giants, it probably went sour with some other teams. But in the 5th round, to get a first round talented quarterback, absolutely you do that. And again, we're higher on Dylan Gabriel than a lot of the other consensus as far as he's also talented with a pretty good arm, with good mobility, and with multiple years of production, over 60 starts. And by the way, the most recent quarterbacks that have had a lot of success, Brock Purdy, Bo Nix, the uber experienced 4+ year starters. So for the Browns, they might both not work out. I mean, Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders might not work out. And guess what? You got 2 first rounders next year. And Arch Manning could be coming out, and Lenoris Sellers. And you're going to have to take a shot at another quarterback. But there were no other options for the Browns. And I love this. This is a creative way to fix an awful mess that they created for themselves, in addition to all the other pretty good moves that I think they've made here. So, look, I don't know if the outcome's going to be good for the Browns. I think the process is good that they landed here. Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, get them in the room. Hope that you find your next quarterback on a rookie contract, see what happens. And if not, you can just continue to move on and get out of the mess that is Deshaun Watson.
Honestly, it's phenomenal outcome for them. Like if you were plotting this out, and there's no way they were plotting it out this way, it couldn't have ended up any better. They get, I think, what is the best gamble they could have made in terms of, right, Cam Ward is going to get taken #1 overall. Of all the quarterbacks in this draft, who do you think is the most likely to end up as a capable starter who could get you out of this deal, right? I mean, basically, that's your who's ranked QB2 on your draft board. For most people, that was Shedeur Sanders. Yes, some people had Jackson Dart, some people had Tyler Shuck, but for most people, he was still the consensus QB2. So they've got the guy who most people think is the most likely quarterback to get them out of this trouble, and they've got him in the 5th round. They've also gotten a guy who I think is the most likely, like, mid-round, late round, backup level quarterback to surpass those expectations and become a surprise starter, right? I think that's the way of describing Dylan Gabriel. Everyone drafted in that area is probably a backup quarterback, but if you had to pick one that would exceed those expectations and become a surprise starter down the line, it's Dylan Gabriel. They've gotten both those guys. They didn't spend more than a 3rd round pick on either of them, and they've ended up manufacturing an extra 1st rounder next year, so that if both of them don't work out, which is very possible, they can go and get the real quarterback at the top of the draft next year when it's easier to get away from Deshaun Watson. They've effectively come at the same time. They've bought themselves a year of treading water and taken 2 rolls of the dice that one of these guys actually becomes the surprise starter in the long-term future.
There's a hot button issue, man. It is interesting. I think somebody said before, like, nobody has like a lukewarm opinion on Shedeur Sanders.
Right.
There's no lukewarm opinions. Mine all kind of land lukewarm. Big shocker. I'm a fence sitting taker here. Fence sitting take. I had him as QB2. I thought he was worth a 1st. I thought you think you run an offense. I think he can, cut down on the sack totals. And the biggest question, I think, of his game, we said, I wonder how much of this is just the terrible situation that was in Colorado. That's intriguing to me. I think Dylan Gabriel's not a horrible quarterback, but even if he is, I thought Kellen Mond was worth taking a 3rd round pick a couple years ago for Minnesota. He did nothing. He was awful. He was so bad. 2 head coaching staffs didn't want him. But I think we need to rethink taking shots on quarterbacks. The payout is astronomical. The payout that the 49ers have right now in Brock Purdy for the last 3 years as the cheapest starting quarterback in the league, and the ability to build with those stars around him, he was as long shot of all long shots. It's worth it to just get quarterbacks in and see. And that's going in with uncertainty. We don't know how Shedeur Sanders is going to work out. You don't know how Dylan Gabriel is going to work out. By now, you have an idea on Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. You have an idea of what you're getting. So you got to try the mystery boxes. You got to try. And here we are. Double mystery box for the Cleveland Browns. Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel. See how the competition works out. I love I love the entire process for the Browns in this entire draft. And it's not a guarantee that it's going to work out, but they needed something aggressive to get out of this mess. And this is as good as they could have done, in my opinion.
Right. No, that's the thing. Like the chances are that both of these quarterbacks still do not work out, because that's probably the baseline expectation for a guy drafted in the third round and a quarterback who was artificially inflated to high in the first round and probably was a sort of second round guy. Like, the chances are combined, both of those guys probably have a greater chance of not working out than working out. Right. But that's why it's still good, because you've taken 2 rolls of the dice instead of 1, and you have the first round pick next year, which is sort of an indication, right? Like when the Eagles hedged, and they remember before Jalen Hurts worked out, right? The Eagles hedged by getting 2 first round picks for the following year, just in case Jalen Hurts didn't get any better and they had to go back to the quarterback well. As it turns out, Hurts then got a lot better and they were able to use those first round picks elsewhere. But the Browns have done the same thing. They've hedged for 2 first round picks next year and have the chance that one of these guys works out.
Okay, I might walk back all of my opinions in a second here. There is a video that's been sent to me. Have you seen the Browns war room when they drafted him?
No.
It's interesting.
What is it?
Andrew Berry looks upset. It is the most stoic. It's like a stoic golf clap from the entire room, seemingly for the camera. So I might be giving them a lot of credit for something that was forced upon them. I don't know. Because
ownership again. We got ownership's going back to the well.
I'm making it. I'm making it implication. Somebody just tweeted it at me, and it is. It is when they selected Shedeur, they're on the camera. I'm like, is this fake? Let's just make sure. Because a lot of my opinion here, Sam, is I don't have to deal with the day-to-day, right? I don't have to deal with the media stuff. I don't have to deal with answering questions. Is Shedeur going to start? Dylan Gabriel? How do you do preseason games when the 2 guys are out there? Who comes out first? Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders in preseason games, right? I don't have to deal with that.
Right.
And I'm implying that maybe teams shouldn't care about that much. But they do. They do care about that. They do think that if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. They do think that if you overload the quarterback room, it could be bad. And I'm over here saying, well, what if you just try it and just see? Go figure it out. It looks like the Browns are of the traditional mind. Maybe they didn't want to do this, but here they are.
I love the idea that Jimmy Haslam was like, I made such a good call last time. I'm stepping in again.
Oh man, this is. Oh, it came from Warren Sharp putting this out. Okay, this is new information. New information has been brought to the table here. Either way, I still love it as a process. They need a quarterback. They need a first contract quarterback over the next 2 years, and they have an opportunity to take a look at 2 of them. Close up.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.